Video is on judicial review. Briefly, not the specifics of the court case, but judicial review is the power of the courts to declare laws unconstitutional. And from 1789 till today, there have been 160 federal laws that have been declared unconstitutional. Now, when we talk about this, it's important that we look at the two different approaches of interpreting the Constitution. You have the judicial restraint approach, which is sometimes called strict constructionist, and this is usually held by conservatives and Republicans. And what this judicial restraint approach says is that we are going to interpret the Constitution based on how the Founding Fathers wrote it and what their thoughts and feelings and how they would interpret it back in their day. So just kind of like a little review, the Federalist Papers come in handy when we're talking about this approach, because we can literally go back and find out what were the Founding Fathers thinking when they wrote the document. So they definitely want to be restrained. They're very strict interpretations. They do not necessarily want to take into account what's going on today. But how would the Founding Fathers have reacted to whatever issue comes along? The next approach is called the active approach. Some people call it the living Constitution approach, and this is held by liberals and Democrats more often. And basically what this is saying is the Founding Fathers couldn't possibly understand or anticipate the things that we are going through, so we have to be able to live in the world that we live in today and interpret it based on what's going on around us. So these two approaches are not parallel to liberal and conservative. I have attached those two because the majority of the time they are, but there are times that you can have a political liberal who believes that they are bound by the language of the Constitution. They'd like to see progress, they'd like to see change, but they realize at the end of the day that the Constitution is the law of the land and it must be followed. Or you might have a conservative who thinks that they have a duty to use their best judgment in deciding what is good public policy. I know a specific example of this is Sandra Day O'Connor, who was appointed by a Republican, and she was fairly conservative, but she voted to uphold abortion laws when it came up in the Supreme Court. So you can't always assume. Another one would be John Roberts. As a strict constructionist, he is a conservative Republican, and when we looked at the mandate to buy insurance on Obamacare, he was actually the fifth vote to say it's a tax and not a penalty, which allowed the individual mandate to go through for Obamacare. So when we're talking about judicial review, sorry about that, the founders' view, they did not expect the courts to play a significant role in public policy. And we talked about that. You know, they really did not put that much time into that when you compare it to the other two branches. What they assumed that the courts would just apply existing law. What does the law require? Not what the judges believed. So they were not supposed to insert their own philosophies or their own thoughts and feelings. So at that time, it was very easy to justify judicial review because, once again, they were saying it's the least dangerous. They don't have the purse. They don't have the sword. They will just be impartial. They will be above politics, and we don't have to worry about this power that we've given them.